The unknown Fleet High Chancellor Vex had ruled the Carethian Empire for over 3 centuries, and in all that time, nothing had ever made his blood run cold quite like this moment. The massive holographic display in the Grand Command Chamber showed something that should have been impossible. Thousands of ships, arranged in perfect formation, moving through space with a precision that defied explanation. The ships themselves looked ancient by Carethian standards. Their hulls were made of simple metals, their engines burned chemical fuel, and their weapons appeared to be nothing more than kinetic projectiles and primitive energy beams. By all rights, these vessels should have been museum pieces, not a fleet capable of crossing the galaxy. Admiral Thane, the Empire's most decorated military commander, stood before the display with his forearms crossed behind his back. His reptilian features showed none of the confidence that had carried him through 1,000 victories. "Your Excellence," he said, his voice unusually quiet. "The fleet was first detected by our border sensors 3 days ago. They appeared at the edge of the neutral zone, completely unannounced." Vex leaned forward in his crystalline throne, studying the data streams that flowed across the secondary displays. The numbers were staggering. 15,000 ships, he murmured. "Admiral, in the entire history of our empire, has any single species ever fielded a fleet of this size?" "No, Your Excellence. The largest fleet we ever faced was the Draconian Rebellion, and they managed barely 2,000 vessels." Thane manipulated the holographic controls, zooming in on individual ships. "But it's not just the numbers that concern me. Look at their formation patterns." The display shifted to show the tactical arrangement of the unknown fleet. Every ship was positioned with mathematical precision. Supply vessels were perfectly protected by escorts. Heavy ships formed defensive screens around what appeared to be command vessels. The entire formation moved like a single organism, adapting to gravitational fields and space debris with fluid grace. Science Officer Zara stepped forward from her position at the analysis station. She was young for her rank, but her mind was among the sharpest in the Empire. "Your Excellence, we've managed to trace their origin point. The fleet appears to have come from a system approximately 40,000 light-years from here. The locals call it Sol." "Sol." Vex repeated the unfamiliar word. "What do we know about this system?" Zara activated her personal datapad, and new information began flowing across the main display. The system contains a single habitable world, which the inhabitants call Earth. Our long-range scans indicate it's what we would classify as a death world. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembled council members. Death worlds were rare, and intelligent life evolving on them was almost unheard of. Vex gestured for Zara to continue. "The planet's gravity is nearly double what most species. Consider comfortable. The atmosphere contains high levels of oxygen, which is toxic to many life forms. The surface is covered in a corrosive liquid they call water. Weather patterns include violent electrical storms, devastating wind systems, and temperature variations that would kill most civilized beings." Defense Minister Korth, an elderly being whose species had been among the first to join the Empire, shook his head in disbelief. How could any intelligent species evolve in such conditions? "That's not the most disturbing part," Zara continued. "We've intercepted and decoded some of their historical transmissions. These beings, who call themselves humans, have been at war for their entire recorded history, not just with external threats, but with each other. For over 10,000 of their years, they've been refining the art of combat." The chamber fell silent. Most species in the galaxy fought wars when necessary, but few made it their primary occupation. The Carethians themselves had achieved dominance through superior technology and diplomatic skill, not through constant warfare. Admiral Thane spoke up. Our intelligence suggests that these humans don't fight wars the way civilized species do. They have records of small groups holding positions against overwhelming odds. They speak of concepts like fighting to the last man and death before dishonor. These are not rational beings who surrender when faced with superior force. Vex stood up from his throne and walked to the great viewing window that overlooked the imperial capital. Below him, representatives from 500 worlds lived in harmony under Carethian protection. The empire had grown not through conquest, but through offering advanced technology and security to less developed species. When conflicts arose, they were typically resolved through negotiation or a simple demonstration of superior firepower. What is your assessment of their threat level? Vex asked, without turning around. Thane hesitated. Based purely on their technology, they should pose no threat at all. Our shields can deflect their weapons, our ships are faster, and our firepower is vastly superior. But, their tactical formations are perfect, Your Excellence. These ships move with a coordination that suggests either advanced, artificial intelligence or a level of training and discipline we've never encountered. And there's something else. Thane manipulated the display again, showing a new set of data. We sent a standard diplomatic probe to make first contact. Their response was ... unexpected. The main screen now showed a recording of the human fleet. As the Carethian probe approached, the entire formation shifted. Ships that had been in cruise formation suddenly deployed into battle positions. Weapons came online. Defense screens activated. The transformation took less than 30 seconds. They treated our diplomatic probe as a potential threat, Zara observed. Most species welcome first contact. These humans immediately assumed hostile intent. Counselor Yill, the Empire's chief diplomat, finally spoke. Perhaps they've had bad experiences with alien contact before. We should try a more formal approach. Send a message explaining our peaceful intentions. Vex nodded slowly. Do it. Use the standard first contact protocols. Offer them trade agreements, technology exchanges, and membership in the galactic community. Surely they can see the advantages of joining our alliance. Admiral Thane activated the communication systems. The message was transmitted using the Empire's most powerful relay stations, ensuring it would reach the human fleet within minutes. The contents were simple and straightforward. Greetings from the Carethian Empire. An explanation of their peaceful intentions and an invitation to negotiate. The response came back faster than anyone expected. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of what appeared to be the human fleet's command vessel. The being who appeared on screen was obviously the fleet commander. She was tall for a human, with short grey hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her uniform was simple but well made, and her posture suggested both confidence and readiness for action. This is Fleet Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Terran Defense Force, the human said, her voice clear and steady. Your probe was detected and catalogued. Your message has been received and analyzed. We appreciate your stated peaceful intentions, but we must inform you that this region of space has been designated as neutral territory by the Sol System United Government. Our fleet is conducting lawful passage through international waters. The human paused, and her expression became slightly harder. We note that your probe conducted active scans of our vessels without permission. While we understand this may be standard procedure for your species, it constitutes a hostile act under Terran military doctrine. We trust this was a misunderstanding and will not be repeated. I believe she did, Vex replied slowly. Admiral Thane, what is your analysis of their capabilities? Thane studied the tactical displays with growing concern. Your Excellence, their technology may be primitive, but their discipline is extraordinary. Look at how they responded to our probe. Every ship in the fleet reacted simultaneously. There was no delay for communication, no confusion, no hesitation. They moved like a single mind controlling 15,000 bodies. Zara had been running calculations during the exchange. Your Excellence, I've analyzed the energy signatures from their fleet. While their individual ships may be technologically inferior to ours, the sheer number of them represents a significant threat. If they were to attack in concentrated formations, they could potentially overwhelm even our most advanced defensive systems through simple volume of fire. The realization hit the Council like a physical blow. For 2 millennia, the Carethian Empire had relied on technological superiority to maintain peace. Their weapons could destroy entire planets, their shields could deflect any known attack, and their ships could outrun anything in the galaxy. But none of that mattered if the enemy had enough ships to simply overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers. There's something else, Admiral Thane said, his voice grim. I've been studying their formation patterns, and they don't match any tactical doctrine in our databases. Most species arrange their fleets for maximum firepower or optimal defense. These humans have created a formation that appears to be designed for something else entirely. What? Vex demanded. Adaptation. Their ships are positioned so they can rapidly reconfigure for any type of combat scenario. They can shift from exploration formation to battle formation to siege formation in minutes. It's as if they've prepared for every possible contingency. The implications were staggering. The Empire had grown comfortable with predictable enemies who fought according to established patterns. These humans seemed to have thrown out every rule of conventional warfare and created something entirely new. Councillor Yiel cleared her throat nervously. Perhaps we should consider their request for recognition of neutral territory. If they're simply passing through, there's no need for conflict. But Vex was thinking beyond the immediate situation. If word spread that the mighty Carethian Empire had backed down from a fleet of primitive ships, it could encourage rebellions throughout their territory. Other species might begin to question whether the Empire was truly as invincible as it appeared. Send another message, he ordered. Tell them that while we respect their right to passage, we must insist on conducting security inspections of their fleet. It's standard procedure for all vessels entering this region of space. As the message was transmitted, Vex found himself hoping that the humans would be reasonable. But something told him that these beings from the death world called Earth were unlike any species the Empire had ever encountered. The way they moved, the way they communicated, the way they prepared for threats that hadn't even materialized. Yet it all suggested a kind of thinking that was foreign to the civilized galaxy. The response from Fleet, Admiral Martinez, was even quicker this time, and her tone had grown noticeably colder. Admiral Martinez, to Carethian vessel, your request for inspection is denied. Our fleet operates under the authority of the Sol System United Government and is not subject to searches by foreign powers. We suggest you review the Galactic Accords regarding neutral space navigation rights. She paused, and when she continued, there was steel in her voice. Furthermore, any attempt to board or inspect our vessels will be considered an act of war. We have 15,000 ships and crews trained for exactly this type of situation. We strongly advise against testing our resolve." The transmission ended, and for the first time in his long reign, High Chancellor Vex felt something he had almost forgotten: uncertainty. Earth's answer fleet, Admiral Sarah Martinez, stood on the bridge of the UHSF Endeavour, humanity's most advanced warship and flagship of the Terran Defense Force. Around her, 200 of Earth's finest officers and crew. Members worked with the quiet efficiency that had become the hallmark of humanity's military forces. The bridge itself was a marvel of human engineering, not the most advanced technology in the galaxy perhaps, but built with a reliability and redundancy that few alien races could match. "Status report," Martinez ordered, her eyes never leaving the tactical display that showed the positions of both fleets. Commander James Chen, her tactical officer, looked up from his station. "The alien fleet is maintaining position at 40,000 kilometers. No change in their formation, but we're detecting increased energy signatures from what appear to be their weapon systems." Martinez nodded. She had expected as much. In her 30 years of military service, she had learned to read the signs of an opponent preparing for conflict. The Carethians were following a predictable pattern: intimidation, demands for compliance, and now preparation for violence when those demands were refused. "Communications, any response to our latest transmission?" Lieutenant Sarah Park shook her head. "Nothing yet, Admiral, but we are picking up increased chatter between their ships. Our translation algorithms are still working on their language, but the tone suggests heated discussion." Martinez smiled grimly. She could imagine what kind of discussion was taking place on the alien ships. For over 60 years, ever since humanity had developed faster than light travel, they had been preparing for this moment: first contact with an advanced alien civilization. Earth's leaders had studied every science fiction story, every theoretical framework, every possible scenario. They had reached one inescapable conclusion: when humanity finally met aliens, those aliens would likely view humans as either primitives to be ignored or threats to be eliminated. "Admiral," called out Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, the fleet's xenobiologist and first contact specialist. "Based on the translations we've managed so far, I believe these Carethians are what we would classify as a hegemonic empire. They seem to view themselves as the natural rulers of this region of space." "Their technology," Martinez asked, "significantly more advanced than ours in most areas. Their ships appear to use some form of exotic matter for propulsion, and their weapons are based on directed energy rather than kinetic systems." However, Rodriguez paused, consulting her datapad. "Our intelligence teams have identified several potential weaknesses." Martinez turned to face the scientist. "Go on. Their tactics are extremely rigid. Every formation we've observed follows classical military doctrine: maximize firepower, minimize casualties, achieve victory through technological superiority. They fight wars the way we did in the 20th century, just with better equipment." Commander Chen looked up from his console. "That's consistent with what we're seeing on the tactical display. Their ships are arranged for maximum fire coordination, but they're not adapting to our formation at all. It's like they expect us to fight according to their rules." Martinez felt a familiar feeling, the same sensation she had experienced during the Titan crisis 15 years ago when a rogue AI had threatened Earth's colonies. It was the moment when she realized that her enemy's greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Implement formation Delta 7. Across 15,000 ships, human crews began executing a maneuver that had never been attempted on this scale. The massive fleet began to shift and flow like a living organism. Ships that had been arranged in traditional defensive patterns suddenly scattered into dozens of smaller groups. Each group was positioned to provide mutual support while presenting no obvious target for concentrated fire. On the Carethian flagship, Admiral Thane watched in amazement as the human fleet transformed before his eyes. "What are they doing?" he asked his tactical officers. "This formation makes no sense. They've eliminated their ability to concentrate firepower." High Chancellor Vex studied the display with growing unease. "Perhaps they're retreating." "No, Your Excellence," Thane replied after consulting his instruments. "They're maintaining position, but their new formation. It's unlike anything in our tactical databases." Meanwhile, on the Endeavour, Martinez was watching the Carethian response with satisfaction. "They're confused," she observed. "Their ships are trying to reposition to target our main force, but they can't figure out where our main force is." "That's the beauty of Formation Delta 7, Commander Chen explained. "Every group of our ships is both an independent fighting unit and part of the larger formation. We don't have a vulnerable center for them to target." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her communication station. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Carethian flagship." The main screen activated, showing High Chancellor Vex himself. The alien leader looked every bit as imposing as Martinez had expected, tall, reptilian, with eyes that held the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 2,000 years of unquestioned rule. "I am High Chancellor Vex of the Carethian Empire. You have refused our reasonable request for inspection and adopted what appears to be a hostile formation. This is your final opportunity to comply with Imperial authority. Surrender your ships for processing or face the consequences." Martinez stepped forward so that she was clearly visible on the transmission. "High Chancellor, I am Fleet Admiral Martinez of the Terran Defense Force. I want to be very clear about our position. We are not your subjects. We do not recognize your authority over neutral space, and we will not surrender our ships to anyone." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "However, we have no desire for conflict with your people. We propose a simple solution. Your ships withdraw to Imperial space, our ships continue to their destination, and we arrange formal diplomatic discussions through proper channels." Vex's expression hardened. "You seem to misunderstand your situation, human. The Carethian Empire controls 500 star systems. Our technology is beyond your comprehension. Your primitive ships are no match for our forces." Martinez smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several of the watching Carethian officers shift uncomfortably. "High Chancellor, let me tell you something about humans. We come from what you would call a death world. For millions of years, everything on our planet tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the planet itself. We survived by learning to adapt, to cooperate, and to never give up." Her expression grew more serious. "We've been fighting wars since before we had written language. We've perfected tactics that your databases have never seen because we developed them fighting each other. We know how to turn disadvantages into advantages and how to make our enemies' strengths work against them." The transmission from the Endeavour continued, but now it showed not just Martinez, but the entire bridge crew. Humans working together with seamless efficiency, each one focused on their task, but coordinated with all the others. "You see primitive ships High Chancellor, we see 15,000 crews who have trained their entire lives for exactly this situation. You see inferior technology. We see tools that are simple, reliable, and impossible to disrupt with exotic countermeasures. Vex was beginning to look uncertain. You cannot seriously believe that your crude weapons can threaten Imperial ships. Martinez's smile returned. Would you like a demonstration? Before Vex could respond, the human fleet performed another impossible maneuver. 1,000 ships suddenly accelerated toward the Carethian position, but instead of maintaining their course, they began weaving through space in patterns that defied conventional tactical wisdom. They moved like a swarm of insects, each ship following an apparently random path, but somehow never colliding with the others. What are they doing? Thane demanded of his tactical officers. Our targeting computers can't lock onto them. They're moving too unpredictably. It's not random, Science Officer Zara said, her voice filled with sudden understanding. They're using chaos theory. Each ship is following a mathematical pattern that appears random but is actually completely coordinated. It's brilliant. The human demonstration lasted exactly 60 seconds. Then the ships returned to their positions as if nothing had happened. The message was clear. If the Carathians wanted a fight, they would be facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Martinez spoke again, her voice calm and professional. High Chancellor, we could continue this conversation with weapons, but I don't think either of us wants that outcome. What do you say we discuss this like civilized beings? Before Vex could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the Carethian flagship. Admiral Thane spun to his sensor station, his face going pale. Your Excellence, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting another fleet approaching our position. The tactical display shifted to show a new group of ships approaching from the edge of the system. These vessels were clearly different from both the Carethians and the humans, sleek, predatory shapes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Pirates, Thane said grimly. Looks like the Shadowmoor clan. They must have detected our standoff and decided to take advantage of the situation. Martinez studied the new arrivals on her own displays. Commander Chen, analysis, 40 ships. Admiral, advanced stealth technology, heavy weapons. They're positioning themselves to attack both fleets. Martinez made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Signal the Carathian flagship. Tell them we're willing to discuss our differences later. Right now, we have a common enemy. The next few minutes proved that humans were indeed different from any species the galaxy had known. While the Carethian and human fleets had been facing each other in traditional opposing formations, the human ships suddenly dispersed throughout the battle space. Some moved to protect the Carethian vessels. Others began flanking maneuvers against the pirates. And still others took up positions that made no sense until the shooting started, when the Shadowmoor clan opened fire. They discovered that their carefully planned ambush had been turned into a trap. Human ships appeared from every angle, their primitive weapons proving devastatingly effective against pirate vessels designed to fight conventional opponents. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes, and when it was over, the pirate fleet had been completely destroyed with minimal casualties on either side. High Chancellor Vex stared at the tactical display in amazement. His most experienced admiral and the finest fleet in the Empire had been preparing to fight a battle they might not have won, and these humans had turned the entire situation into a coordinated defense that made both fleets stronger. Admiral Martinez, he said over the communication channel, and for the first time his voice held a note of respect. It appears that we have underestimated your people. Martinez nodded. And we may have misjudged yours, High Chancellor, perhaps. It's time we got to know each other properly. What followed were 3 days of negotiations that established humanity as the first species in galactic history to join the interstellar community as equals rather than subjects. The Carethian Empire, recognizing that they had encountered something entirely new, agreed to formal diplomatic relations and mutual defense agreements. But the most important outcome was the realization on both sides that the galaxy was a bigger, more complex place than either species had imagined. The humans brought their adaptability, their unconventional thinking, and their unbreakable spirit. The Carethians offered their advanced technology, their diplomatic experience, and their knowledge of galactic civilization, as Fleet Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, watching human and Carethian ships working together to establish a joint patrol of the neutral zone. She reflected on humanity's first steps into the larger universe. They had been tested and found worthy not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the very qualities that had allowed them to survive on their harsh homeworld: creativity, determination, and the ability to turn any disadvantage into a strength. The Empire rulers had asked whose fleet was approaching their territory. The answer was Earth's, and that answer had changed everything. Asterisk.